All right, we are live. Welcome to the Straight Talk Mind and Muscle Show. Welcome to the Eat Well, Move Well radio show. Thank you, John McPhee. Encore podcast. I'm honored. I don't get to do it very often with a guest, but John, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, man. Yeah, glad to be back. Glad you're having me.
Man, always a pleasure to see you. You're inspirational, which is awesome, and one of the reasons that you're on. Really cool to see you in your dojo. Just chatting before, you got the screen set up, you got the backdrop. We had a great chat last time. There was a few little things that I'd like to delve into, but what I'd love to delve into today is, what you're doing now with the video analysis, what you're doing now with coaching people and transferring your skills. For people that have listened to this show, if you want to go back and find out all about John's background, listen to the first show. We're not going to rehash it. We're going to add on to it. But, you run SOB Tactical. I'm going to ask you to do it in your words because I hate butchering things. So how do you teach people their gun skills, their gun safety? How do you get them better and make them good in this 2022 environment?
So look, guns are more taboo now than ever before, right? And you could be a police officer and people still think guns are bad. You know what I mean? You could be in the military, people still think guns are bad. So there's a stigmatism that goes with that. You know what I mean? And it's kind of funny being an ex-soldier. A lot of my family, they don't like guns. They think there's no reason for people to have guns, right? We grew up on the south side of Chicago, and I go help the Chicago, the suburbs, the PDs around there. I teach around there because I grew up there. So I'll go back and my family members, my aunt will go, honey, watch yourself, and I'll be like, why? I'm working at the police department, and she'll be like, people that have guns are bad. And I'm like, I'm working at the police department. And she's like, no, anyone with a gun is bad. Right.
Wow.
But that older mindset of where I grew up, that you didn't need a gun. That's not the way people settled things. That's not the way people talked about, so I think that's an older mindset. When the world was more peaceful, you didn't need a gun. Right? I would say post World War II, almost anywhere on this planet, you didn't need a gun. Why? No one wanted to, no one wants to hurt anyone else. Can't we just all get along now? Right. So probably an ebb and flow throughout history, but so I get that now, right? And here's what I do is I've been teaching online since 2012. I started an online service, and here's why I started it. I thought that there would be a day that you could own a gun, but you can't bring it to the range, right? Because if a regular guy gets caught with a firearm, he loses his job, right? Because, this is a major crime, right? You'd lose your job and it'd ruin your life. Why would you take that risk? So how do you train with it, right? So I started this in 2012. I started using airsoft guns, just the toy guns, right?
Yeah.
I train with these every day. It's a toy, right? Look, it's marked like a toy. And, it's at my feet with a holster because I'm in the dojo, but I train with that type of stuff every day. And I started offering that online, right? And I've had a bunch of people, I was out here last night. I'm out here when I'm home, I'm out here most nights helping people because there's people that live places that actually need this training, police, whoever, that there's nowhere else that they could attain this knowledge, right? And the world's crazier than ever. So, hey, when, I don't know, TV show Mayberry, right? You ever hear, what was the cop in Mayberry? You ever watch that? It's an American TV show.
I've heard of Mayberry, but one thing I do know about Chicago, it's a tough place. I watch a little bit of Chicago PD now and then.
Yeah, it's a tough place. I grew up in a tough place. But I started doing this because I figured where else can someone talk to a guy like me just freely?
Yeah, that's it.
And tap into my experience, hey, And then I tell a lot of police officers that I work with, people I coach, like, hey, I've seen these situations before. Like, here's kind of a couple things you should look at or do, or, train this first before you train something else. And sometimes just that conversation is enough to get someone going in the right direction. I mean, think about it. Most of the time, you got the most of the pieces when you're starting a new workout, right? When you're changing the way you eat, you're adding another piece to the puzzle. Does it work? Does it not? Right? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. With the video stuff, if you show me what you do, it's not 50-50 anymore. I can show you, do these things, right?
Awesome. That you're so right about people not being able to access guys with your skill. Back in the day, so I would go back in before 2000, you'd hear about some SAS guy in New Zealand, and you might try and get one tip of one thing for training, and this was to pass selection, from this legend. And now literally, we're getting to share this knowledge to the whole world on the internet. Isn't it just beautiful?
Yeah, like well, I would tell you this is, this is a great way to share information between people, but also, governments don't like us sharing stuff like this. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And the truth is like, a police officer is a police officer. A soldier is a soldier. Like, what is so secret about you carry a gun and you enforce the law? You know what I mean?
Oh, it's amazing. We do live in a bit of a strange time, but what you're doing, teaching people remotely, you get to access so many more people, and people that likely need it, because I would dare say that those people reach out to you for help. So again, one of my skill sets in the unit was coaching those people, the new guys, through when their pistol shooting wasn't quite up to scratch. And they didn't need the guys yelling at them so much. They were out there on the bell curve. There was the really good guys, the majority, and then these guys that couldn't quite grip it up. And I used to have a nice softly approach to them and figure some things out. But could you walk through for the listener how you do a video analysis and make people better by? I've seen some of your videos, and literally you're fixing them in such a short period of time. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I would say this is, I'll show you a video in a minute. Like, I just adjusted a little bit. I was kind of moving forward, right? So while we're talking about it, I'll adjust. I'll turn on the TV. And look, literally, I did a lot of free fall. I was a free fall coach, right? I didn't really like free fall per se, like one-on-one. I did it, but it wasn't like my favorite thing to do. I liked teaching tandem. Like jumping other people or the bundles or bigger equipment. Like, I always really liked that, right? But every time I jumped, no matter what I did, when I had a new student, I would have a camera guy left of the student, right of the student, and I would fly in front of him. And if the student's spinning, we're spinning, I'm trying to stay in front of him to tell him what he's doing wrong. We'd get on the ground and it'd be like, how did the jump go? Right. And the dude, like, it was amazing. Are you kidding me? Like, high five. And you're like, no, high five on this one, dog. And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, you don't know what you did? And the guy's like, no, it's amazing. And I was like, you didn't see my hand signals? And the guy's like, what? And I just gave him the hand signal. I gave you the hand signal for legs. I just kind of threw it in the screen there. Right. So that's what I would do. I'd put it in his face and I'd be like, put your legs out. But he can't hear me. And he's having so much fun, He doesn't realize we get on the ground, he sees the video and he sees me like, legs out, he's like, that kind of changes things a little bit. You know what I mean? I thought we were having a ton of fun. Yeah. So I always knew the video was a good way to train. And then I'll tell you another time, the video that caught me. I was a mid-level to kind of senior guy. I'm the next guy to kind of take a team, or in a pool of guys, who's next, right? You don't really know who's next, right? But I was actually next, but I was in a pool of the guys who were next, right? And we were doing CQB, and you get a bunch of high mid-level guys in the unit together, right? Just playing around, that everyone knows how to do this really well. Like, we'd have a ton of fun in these days. You know what I mean? Just playing around, trying different stuff, right? And so one day I'm in the indoor shoot house, and my boss is like, John, come to the control room. And I'm like, this thing's got an intercom? Amazing, right? I never knew that, right? Like, we shoot and blow stuff up here. Never thought it had an intercom, right? I've been working here for years, never knew that, right? So I go to the control room, and back then it was all them little black and white TVs that were like, 3 feet long, and it's like this big in the front. And it was all black and white. So he was like, hey, and I don't even remember what he told me I did. He's like, hey, I did something somewhere through a hallway in a door. I messed something up, right? And I'm like, that doesn't even sound like me. And he's like, look at the video. I knew I didn't do it, but that video told me something different. And I started like, how can I right now? And I, like, as a mid-level senior guy, right? I go, hey boss, I won't do it again. I don't even know why I did it. Like, won't happen again, right? I went on my way. But later I was like, I honestly thought I didn't do that, but I did it. Like, I watched myself do it on the video. He would like rewind, play, rewind, play. Remember how it squeaked when you rewind it? Play. And I was like, I knew better. Look, I owned it, right? I see myself, I owned it, right? But I didn't believe that. I didn't believe it myself, So, time goes by and these things stick with you, right? And then right before I retired, Coach's Eye, like 2011 or something like that, summer 2011 comes out in the App Store. I downloaded it because it was like the app of the whatever year or new app or whatever. So I downloaded it, and I downloaded this in 2011. I downloaded this app. This is how ahead of the times they were. When I was getting like fart apps or like what urinal to pick if you go to the bathroom. Like, remember like the first apps in the App Store? It was like, a fart. Like, I had one, you pushed it, it farted, right? Like stuff like that. And then Coach's Eye was in the App Store then. So, and I've been using it ever since. So when I seen this, I was fascinated, right? Because I started doing it on the range, and I shoot all the time. I've always shot all the time. I have buddies who still shoot almost every day. It's just kind of their grind. I'm going to go to the range. I'm going to shoot. I don't care if I'm shooting pistols, this distance or 1,000 yard. Like, I love it all. I'll do it all. As a matter of fact, let's do something different every day so I don't get bored with it, right?
Yeah.
So I love to shoot. I still do. And I started filming myself. I started filming my buddies, like, guys, no one's ever heard of that, like, these dudes can shoot. You know what I mean? These dudes are good. And then, I started shooting, I shoot with world champions a few times a year. I make sure I go down there, I shoot with them. I always have been doing it for years, always will. Some of my best friends, I go shoot with them. And I was watching these videos in 2011 thinking, this isn't anything I was told. Nothing I was told do I see on the video, right? Like trigger jerk or this before, and nothing. It doesn't match. It doesn't look the same. You're not going to figure it out. And then one day I had this, like, as a single guy, then I was dating my wife, but we weren't married at the time. Probably should have been, but I'm a flight risk most of the time. So that's a different story. But I just started, I was like, one day I woke up and like, nothing I was told, nothing I would tell you, nothing I've said on the range really matched what I was seeing. Right? So think about this. I have been doing this. I had been in the unit and now retired. Right? Hey, I was the first guys in 01, and I was out when I was out in 11. You know what I mean? I think my last deployment was in 10. I think I got like, I don't know, 9 documented rotations, probably like 6 surges, documented surges, you know what I mean? And then when I was a sergeant major, none of my overseas time counted because I could go overseas or not, right? So
how does that work though, John? How does
right?
All the stuff that you've learned, you're not seeing on the video? There must be a real disconnect there.
huge, right? And then that one day I was like, you know what, forget everything I think I know, just forget everything. And let me just start with feet. I'll start with people's feet at the ground. I'll start and I'll go ground up, right? And I took a target, like cardboard targets, you know, regular shooting targets, right? And I'm a bachelor. I think I had like a bed and 2 bar stools in the entire house. You know what I mean? Like, I was just saying I was gone all the time. I wasn't paying for furniture. I don't need a dining room table. You know what I mean? Like, so my house was empty and I just stapled a cardboard on one of the walls in the living room. And I sat there and I was like, what do I see about everybody's feet? What works, what doesn't? And before I knew it, I had like 10 or so bullet comments. Right. And then I was like, okay, what about knees? What about hips? What about like the torso? What about the shoulders? What about the head? You know, arms, hands, where does it need to go? What does right even look like? First and foremost, and what right looked like. I didn't try to explain it to myself. I just did bullet comments. Make sense?
Yeah,
like,
totally.
It ends up being this massive outline. I ended up with like 30 targets in my living room with probably 150 bullet comments, all stuff that I had seen, all stuff that I know, nothing no one ever told me about, nothing we ever talked about, right? And it boils down to language is the ultimate barrier, right? And you know, and then like, look, you know, in Iraq, we'd question guys, right? You know, you ever see a car, a Chevy Impala, that's what it's called here in the States, right? In like a 90s one, it looks like a big like boat, like it's this big round, huge bubble car. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep, totally, yeah.
I think there's like 28 different ways to say that in Arabic from someone who lives in the Baghdad area. Right? Imagine asking a guy, we're looking for the Chevy Impala. You mean the boat? No. You mean the whale? No. You mean the bear? Right? Like, you know, the guy's throwing names out, trying to like, and every one of these, I mean, think about this. We've had guys where every one of those names is right. We just didn't know the slang.
Yeah, totally.
Right. So it's a language barrier. I think when the Bible was translated in, like, I think it was translated into Greek, there was 13 different ways to say the word blue.
Well, it's funny you should say that. I remember literally being at a fire base in East Timor, and the Padre was there, and we were talking about it. He said the translation, because he had studied Hebrew, which was rare. And I asked him about Yahweh and how you spell it. He said, well, actually, when they translated, they guessed the vowels. So, I mean, do the math. Is it 5 vowels? There's so many different ways of figuring things out. Interesting.
Yeah. So so that goes to my next point, which is everybody talks about when I went through the Special Forces Q course, you had to read it, see it once, right? Read it once, see it once, see somebody do it once, and then you needed to do it once, right? Before you considered like you knew how to do it, right? And that was kind of the mantra, right? So you got to see it, you got to try it, you got to be able to do it.
Yep.
I don't think reading it even matters to human beings. And I'm going to tell you why. Because if something's wrong with your car, that little engine light comes on in my truck, right? I'm on YouTube and I YouTube what's wrong with it, right? If it's a 20-second video, like, I'll fix this. I'm badass. Yeah. And then it's like 22-minute video. I'm like, I'm taking this to the dealership. Like, it's theirs. So, hey, no one learns from reading, essentially, right? You'd have to be a reader to really learn from reading, but everybody learns visually. And I'll tell you why. And it's this simple reason, right? Look, I read every book about psychology, sociology, neuroscience. I should have a master's or PhD in psychology. I read every book I could find. I've always been fascinated by the decisions that human beings make. Fascinated, right? So I read every book I could when I retired, and I listened to them in my truck. I'm always driving to classes. I'm always listening to psychology books. And really it boils down to a couple simple things, right? There's kind of two sides of your brain. Maybe there's more to it. Maybe there ain't. I don't know, but I'm going to tell you how it works from a training standpoint from my experience. It's kind of two sides of your brain. There's a guy who's going to get it done. That's the fast guy. This is your subconscious. Eyes are controlled by the subconscious. You can't control vision. You can't turn it a different color. You can't turn it all green. You can't turn it off unless you shut your eyelid, which has nothing to do with your eye. Your eyelid's a muscle on its own. And that's why you can't see. Your eyes are hooked to your subconscious. They pick up everything you've ever seen, ever. Makes sense? This is so much of a bigger picture. Does that make sense? Than what people know about, right? So your subconscious is picking up everything with your eyes. And then the slow part of the brain, me and you talking right now, this is where people like to live. This is where they're comfortable. That's not the guy that's going to save your life. So we got to train that guy to have good habits.
Man, you nailed it. You nailed it again. And I've never heard someone speak like you do, John. I was stunned at our last interview, but what you do is you cut through the bullshit, and not in a bad way. You have figured out the exact thing that matters there. And that's, so when you're saying everybody's a visual learner, I mean, I'm an instructor. I coach people. Actually, I've coached people since I was 19. I was one of the first personal trainers in the world. So I had to learn how to, right, I can lift weights and I can get in shape, but I had to teach someone else. That's a different ball game, right?
Yeah.
How the hell do you do that? And there's, are you an oral learner? Are you an oral learner? Are you visual? But I think you just nailed it, because watching a child grow up, you realize they are all visual learners, aren't they? They monkey see, monkey do. So you're born like that.
That's all of us.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Yeah, there's certain things you can't get away from, right? And then, but here's what the video does, is it cuts through all that, right? Look, here's normally what I see on the range. You think you're the world champion, right? And of course, your brain would think you're the best at this. It's your brain. It should think you're the best. Total logical for that to even happen, right? But then you watch the video and you're like, yeah, like I look more like, who even knows? I don't even want to say, right? So like, if this is really good, this is where I am. It's really bad, right? But the reality is as soon as I go, hey, you ready to watch your video? Most guys, right? I'll be like, especially guys who are professional, they're professionally driven. They'll look down and they'll be like, play, I already know what it looks like.
Oh,
right? Think about this. I don't got to argue with you ever. I'm like, okay, I'll play. Right? Here's my advice. I would tell you these things, right? And it really cuts through the chatter, right? My asked me one time, she's like, man, you must argue with a lot of people. I was like, actually, I don't argue with anybody. In court, this is evidence.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, this whatever just happened on this video just happened. I'll tell you what I see, because I watch tens of thousands, or if not even more now. I've been doing this for a decade now. So nothing surprises me. Now, I will tell you this. If you came to a class and you recorded everything I said and applied it to anything in life, it would work, because you're cutting through the chatter, right? Look, you're going to think things, you're going to have certain notions, but you're really doing something else. If you knew what you were actually doing, right? And if you knew what you were doing, you know what that gives you? A start point for the first time in your life. You got a start point. You can start here with this.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's what most people lack, because if you don't have a start point, how do you know what direction, what speed, where, how, when, why?
Totally.
But if I knew where A was and you told me B's that way, I'm on it, right?
Yeah.
But I got to know where A is. The problem is most coaches, most shooters, especially in my industry, right? They have too much ego for them to be critically analyzed and their mistakes, right? Because they don't want a student judging them like they're going to judge a student off the video. But what they don't realize is I say the same thing to myself because I'm a professional. And if I'm going to get better, you think I'm going to, why go out to the range? I tell myself I'm great every day and I'm going to walk away great. You think Michael Jordan just thought he was great? Like, no, that guy worked harder than anyone. Ask him. Right. So
I think he failed. You use the word work, but thereby he had to have failed more than anyone.
Right. He did. Yeah. Right. Right. Fail quick, fail often. Right. Move on. And I would say this experience is doing something. Wisdom is failing it.
Man, you are such an interesting dude, man. I love it. So video analysis, literally you started with your feet. You get like, hey, this, I need to start somewhere. Let's at least get the footwork right. You know, you get people all walks of life. We're talking about police officers, military, average citizen. How does it translate dry firing or real firing, live firing on video to them getting better so quickly? Because for us, there was millions of rounds.
I know. Same here. Like, and we prided ourselves on how much we shot. You know what I mean? But the reality is it didn't actually make us better. And long terms, it'll cause problems because human nature, what puts us on the top of the food chain is we'll cut corners every time. And then eventually that cut corner becomes a bad habit, and that bad habit you don't see, right? And then think about this. This is how those rocks move across the desert. You don't ever see them moving, but the trail behind that thing's 200 feet long. Like, it had to move sometime. You know what I mean? But you look out there every day, you don't see it moving. Make sense?
Yeah.
So again, back to that start point. If someone could just give you a start point, right? That you believed, right? That you were able to see for yourself, like, yes, okay, I see this. I do this, right? Okay, what's next?
Yeah.
Right now, you can't help people that don't want to be helped.
But most people wouldn't come to you that wouldn't want to be helped. So that's your filter.
Yep. I also have run into, I think there's a certain age where even though you want to be helped, you're just going to do the same thing over and over. Your brain just going to keep repeating it because it's been doing for so long, right? I've only seen a couple old, and I shoot with a lot of older guys. I shoot with a lot of older guys because I'm the only guy that diagnoses the eye stuff correctly so they can be hitting the target again, which is a whole separate talk, by the way.
Wow.
But all this stuff, like whether I'm diagnosing the eyes, these old guys, right? Like I have to give them more time to do the same thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And I'd say if I had to draw a line on that, I'd say it's 65-ish.
Yeah.
And that includes women too, right? Because I shoot with a lot of older folks, right? And older folks, I mean like people like us that just now they're older, but they were police officers. They still want to get to a class once a year, right? Like, and they start to have vision issues. And I do a lot of vision stuff as well. I mix the vision with the brain. And that's fascinating to me as well. Whole separate topic, but we're talking about the brain right now.
Yeah. I love how excited you are. And I got to say, there was so much for me to take in our first interview, so much. But it looks, and then I think you're actually one of the first SF guys I interviewed, because normally my shows, John, I think you were from memory, yeah, because of your amazing customer service email that I got. It blew my mind. And before that, and still now, I've got world leading scientists, the top in the world at migraines, Olympic coaches, all these people, the Mind and Muscle podcast.
Been checking you out.
I interviewed a lot of vets for the last few months, and the ones that are in the right place, like you are the ones that have found their joy. And just watching you here, communicating what you love, you've clearly found your joy, which is brilliant to watch.
Thanks, man. Yeah, look, I started where everyone else was, right? Like, it's hard to even think about, but you're
Different
worried.
person.
How are you going to make your house payment? What are you going to do now, right? Like, there's a there's a lot of, I don't know, second, third order effects that you just don't think about when you join, right? Because you're just a young kid, and then you're older, you're trying to take in every factor, you know what I mean? Because you don't, at this point in life, you don't want to make a misstep, right? And it's not like the Army makes you rich enough to where like, yeah, oh, Army retirement, I never got to work again. Like, bullshit. You know, it ain't that much money. You know what I mean? You know, I was the same way. Look, you look at every PTSD story. I had it, did it all, right? Only to realize 70% of my issues was diet.
Yeah.
Right. And then, you know, the probably 20% of my issues was, of course, I'm angry every day. I drink a bottle at night or more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or hey, this is a party. Like, I'll show you a trick. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Hey, yeah, of course you're angry and mean every day. You're hungover all the time. You don't drink enough water, right? So first off, treat your body like the machine it is, right? To include, give your brain fuel, right? Feed your brain and eat good, right? And, you know, look, I'm not ripped. I don't got a six pack. You know what I mean? I'm kind of dad bodding it. I always have been. I was never that guy in the unit, right? But, you know, you could still eat better. You could still eat foods that are healthier for you. You know what I mean? And I'd say that's most of the issue is drinking and diet. You get those two knocked out. The next thing you got to do is find something you like to do and then keep fucking doing it. And don't look back. Don't listen to anybody.
Man, that is beautiful. It really is. Find something you like to do and just keep doing it. It's that simple. I mean, I've had a roller coaster journey since you and I started, but you just nailed it there. What a few of my, I was going to say more educated, that's incorrect, but more accoladed, so the PhDs and so on, they say that biology creates your psychology, and that's what you just said. You know, you got to feed your body like the machine it is, and feed your brain. That creates your psychology.
Yeah, and there's one more thing you got to feed your brain: positivity.
Yes.
Look, it is, you know, the fast side of the brain's job to save your life. Survival, lizard brain, whatever. It's the fast side of your brain, right? It's the one that's going to do the job when the time comes, right? And that guy's in charge of your survival. So in that sense, right, like, you'll do something, that part of the brain will do something based off of every piece of information you've ever gotten. However, if you don't know how that guy works or how to feed that guy good habits, right, you could know this is happening and still end up getting it a little wrong, right? So you got to know your habits, your tendencies, your strengths, right? And then you also, on an evolutionary, that survival node, you are going to think of the downside. You have to. You can't just, you know what I mean? Like, you know, it's like, you know, all the time, like, we'd have these generals like, men, go take the machine guns. Like, you just wait here. We'll be back in an hour. Like, no, we're not walking up on the machine guns. That's the stupidest thing I ever heard. Yeah. We're going to go around the side of the machine guns. We're going to sneak up on them. Like anybody who doesn't want to die standing in front of the machine guns, right? So in an evolutionary sense, right, like, you're going to think of the downside, right? So what ends up happening is when you work in a job where you have to know the downside all the time, you're always thinking negatively to know how negatively can affect you, to control the downside of any risk you put yourself in, so it can only get so bad. Yeah. Now, having said all of that, that is where your job and where your mindset is every day, those are all negative thoughts. You do that 8, 10, 12, 15, 16, 20, 24 hours a day. And that was my life. And then what I had to do is retrain my brain to just think positively. Right? Like, oh yeah, we're almost out of gas. This just happened to me, right? We're driving and the lights blinking. I was driving an off-road vehicle through the Arizona mountains, not even on a road. I normally do about 50 miles an hour. My buddies can't even keep up because I know what I'm doing. I rally race through the mountains. We drive like from Phoenix to Crown King, Arizona, to Prescott, back to Crown King, and back to Phoenix. From desert to high, pine, snow, freezing, and back down. So bring a jacket, right? But as we're doing that, like, we ran out of gas, right? And the lights blinking, and I was just like, I mean, fuck it, what can we do right now? We got to turn left into the gas station, and we ran out of gas, and I had to push the thing into the gas station, which has an old crushed me. I got to push more cars because it crushed me. But it was like, you know, oh shit, we're out of gas. What, should I be mad about it? Like, no, let it go. It's not worth my day. There's nothing I can do about it. It's not going to change anything. And if and my number one rule, if I'm the only person that's going to be mad out of the deal, it's not worth my time.
It's a good rule, man. It's really clever. So much you're saying there, you know, unpacking it. I won't go into it too much because I think it's just gold the way you say it. I know because I've researched that stuff. You did so much psychology in those few words. You're talking about just the story you tell yourself connected with that event. Last interview we did, you talked about what chapter of your life you're in, but if you're always telling yourself that angry guy story, always telling yourself that negative story that gets imprinted so much in your brain, that's your loop.
Yeah.
You stepped out of it.
Stuck in that chapter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Man, we digress. Talk to us about how to get good at shooting, man.
Okay. So look, I've been doing this for a long time, and I don't know, I'll move this a little closer to the TV so you can see it, right? I do this all the time. I was just out here last night. I coach a lot of people. You can see, like, I have folders. I save a lot of videos. Where the video started is I had no clue what I was looking at, right? And here's what I would tell you, how I was trained, where I was trained. I would say our training was 80% correct. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. But I think our communication of how guys get there, how we tell them to get there, was maybe 20% effective.
I would agree. And
right?
that's part of what I wanted to touch on is you communicating it to civilians, which I think you're actually going to naturally go into.
Yeah. Yeah. So the way we communicate with each other is generic information, right? Because especially with shooting, right? But most sports, whatever happens so quick once you get okay at it. I'm not even saying good, I'm saying okay, right? Once you get okay at anything, normally this happens too quick for the naked eye to pick it all up. So you perceive certain things that happen, right? You'll perceive certain things happening when really that's actually not what the whole story, right?
Right.
When you put it in slow-mo video, you start to see the whole story. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was just thinking about golf video analysis. They've done it for years because it is so fast.
Yeah, and this is your start point.
Yeah.
Right. And then I normally do a few things. You can see, look, this is all the videos. I had a student yesterday in their dojo, right? We were working some one-handed reloads, and all online, all standing where I'm standing now. I take in videos from guys. Look at the beauty. I don't know where this guy lives, but it looks beautiful out there. Like, anyway, I get all kinds, right? So here's kind of the bulk of what I would do, right? And I'll just go to my last class here. And, I have everything from rifles to pistols to vehicle work for police officers or bailing out of vehicle ambushes, CQB, like shoot house stuff. I go back. I work with my old special forces group, right? I do the video with them. I do all of this for everybody, right? And I'd say the bulk of what I do is military, law enforcement, and then a quarter-ish, I would say, is just civilians, right? And I would tell you this is, like most guys, I was leery of training civilians when I retired, but what I realized is guys that want to do this are professionals that understand how this works and understands they don't have time to be at the range every day. So how could I achieve what I need 3 times a year.
Yeah.
Right. Twice a year, 4 times a year, once a month. Right. So this is where this comes in. Right. So,
and can I just pause you? I don't want to pause your and change your trajectory there.
No,
This is for the listeners here in Western Australia, and all police here carry guns. They don't in my country in New Zealand. In Western Australia, the person that's going to be on the scene as a police officer that's most likely going to have to save your life with a gun, and it has happened many times here, gets 1 hour of gun training per year. So what John's saying here, again, for listeners, this is crucial to save your life and save that of others, which is the one job you have as a police officer, is protect life and property.
Yeah. And I would also say this is like, I never learned to shoot how I felt to save my life. I wanted to shoot so I didn't hurt someone else in those situations. I hurt the person that needs to be hurt.
Exactly.
Right. But look, I had a class the other day. I teach is a moving class. And really what I do is I'll take the initial video of you, and then I'll just do kind of stance, grip, right? And then I'll have you just kind of move towards the target, right? This was a moving class. So I'll videotape you moving, right? And like kind of boring, right? Just walks by, right? We walk by and shoot, right? And what I would tell you with the moving and shooting is, police officers, most police academies is 1 week, 40 hours worth of training in firearms. And then most places do two hours a year, right? Some might do 4 hours a year, but that's it, right? And a lot of guys in America are starting to realize no one's coming to help them, right? Like I think, police ambushes are up 150% over like the past year or 21 or something. The numbers are just crazy through the roof, right? So even police officers need to, learn to protect themselves. So I get a lot of those guys coming to the classes. And then what I do in the videos is I just break it down, right? And we look at just those things, you need to instantly get much better, right? Like we're talking about the draw and presentation and what it looks like here, right? And all I do is if I rewind it and, and I talk over it. So I'm like, okay, here's what I see. Here's how it works, right? And then look, as you present the gun, as a guy would draw the gun, I just mark the gun, right, as it goes out with the technology.
Yep.
Right. Just keep marking it. And look, it makes a pattern. That's your pattern. Is that the pattern you want? I don't even know. Right. Here's the pattern. I would tell you what I see my best practices over to doing this 10 years. Right. So I would tell you that.
Yeah.
You bring that thing, get it up to your eye as quick as possible. Let the fast part of the brain controls the eyes. He sees the sights. He's going to bring it out. That's why they always say that, but first sight picture is the best.
Yep.
Right. And then you
Beautiful.
let that sucker take over. Right. And then you pull the trigger and then, And then look, I'll talk about other stuff with guys, other issues. You can see I'm talking to them just about aiming where the muzzle is. Right. So not only do I do a lot of these videos, but each video is incredibly personal to what you do. Right now, when I take the videos and I give the videos in the morning, right? Like I will say the same thing on everyone's coach video. This is what you want to do. And I try to only say what I want you to do because I'm trying to keep the video as short as possible, get you what you need to know, because I got to download this and get it to you. And the longer these videos are, the harder this is. Right. So
totally.
I'm trying to be, on top of things and just say it like it is. Right. So I go through these videos quick, but what people don't realize is I tell everyone the same thing, but as soon as we go up to shoot, we're all different. We're all different. Right. And I tell everybody, look, if I find 10 things wrong, if me and you are on the range of scoring and I find 10 things wrong, 7 are going to be as easy as don't do that again. Why? Because you didn't know you were doing it. You know what I mean? Now that you know, you're like, yeah, I'm not okay. Easy, moving on. Right.
Yeah.
3 are going to be like, I don't know why I do this, but like no matter what, right? And then I do this, and I've had habits, and I've had to break myself. I don't shoot like I used to shoot. I shoot like I should shoot based off of this now, right? But you know, I'd have habits where I'm like, okay, just don't mess this one thing up. Just touch the gun right, and I'd be like, beep. I touch the gun, already messed it up, and you know what I mean? Like, you know, and look, I was already 20 years, you know, I did, you know, 8-9 years in the unit, right? Yeah. Like I had done all of this to just learn I'm doing it wrong too right now, right? And what I learned is, you know, I do these moving classes, right? The moving video I just showed you. Yeah. I do these moving classes, right? In these moving classes, what ends up happening is like a lot of police officers, it's like, okay, and I'll be in the moving class, and I'll be talking about the technique of moving, which I tell anybody walk normal, by the way. Anything else is just kind of like too much. You don't need to do anything else. Walk normal. Imagine that's the best way to walk is normal. Evolution. You do it every day. You know. Anyway, but I tell them to walk normal, and they're kind of shocked, and then I kind of show them. Right. And I show them, and I got a ton of videos. I show them the movement, but then I ask the police officers this one question always. Hey, were you guys ever trained to shoot and take one step? No, but you're expected to move and shoot, aren't you? Right. So taking, you know, so I start guys shooting, right? One step, bang, one step, bang, right? And then 2 steps, and then 3 steps, right? And then by the time I get them moving and shooting, it doesn't matter where their feet are, because I just freed their mind of any preconceived notion they should have had, because I trained them to take that first step, right? The generic information, because we're not very specific with each other, yep. Right? What ends up happening? I'm like, yeah, just walk and shoot. Well, that's what people do. But what if I told you walk normal with these things? You could do it a little bit easier. You might be able to do it better. And if I showed you the video, you could instantly go, oh, that's what you wanted? Yeah, let me try to do that. Oh, walk normal. No shit. Yeah, that worked better, right? Like, so I just see these things, but it's like, you know, these officers, these guys I train, it's like, were you trained to take the first step? And most of them say no.
No.
You're expected to move, shoot, but you've never took the first step, right? So a lot of times with the video is I back people up, and I start taking that 1 step and shooting, 2 steps and shooting. Then we go to 3 steps, and then we actually end up walking about 5, and then we'll shoot, and then we'll do about 2 more, even though they don't know that. Don't tell anybody, right? Spoiler alert, like I'm giving away the class, but yeah, and it's like they're expected to do all these things, but they were never trained to take the first step. And they only got 40 hours with that gun, times 1 or 2 per year for every year they're a police officer.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. And look, I'm not saying you got to be some type of Rambo or anything, but I am saying, like, if you might be in these situations, or this could happen to you, have a little bit of training ahead of time. And this is the easy way to do it. I'd also tell you this is like side note. If you come to me, you or your wife, and you do about 3 hours of coaching with me before your first range session, you'll go to your local gun club and you will beat everybody you know. Proven, happens so many times, right? Like a buddy of mine's wife just went to get her concealed permit. She had to go to the sheriff's department, and they like, you shoot in front of them. Yeah. And like the head range guy's like, this is a model of how you should shoot. Who trained you to shoot? You know what I mean? And she's like, you know, she said me, right? Like she didn't even know what to say. Awesome. He's like this, and he's like in the class, it's like, just everybody do what she does.
And so he didn't know how to communicate.
Right. That's right. And it's seeing where the start point begins. Man. Right. And then look, I would tell you this. I'd also tell you this is like, look, if I filmed you 24 hours a day, everything you did, you'd start to see a lot of little quirks you don't realize you have. You'd see a lot of little words you say all the time. Like I always say, right. right? Because I'm on the range. I'm like, you see this, right? You know what I mean? Now I say right, you know, because I'm trying to get you to like, you say it right. So if you filmed yourself all the time, you have a lot of little quirks, right? But you would see there's a pattern to every one of those. You're not doing new shit. You're messing up the same things over and over since the first time you did this. You never got better because you never fixed the core of what was going on. You fix the core of what's going on, the rest melts away like it never existed, right? And I'm not talking about just shooting. I'm talking about every skill I was ever trained, right? And if that works for every skill I was ever trained, why shouldn't you be training this in your personal life as well?
Yeah, that's
right.
That's definitely self-reflection, isn't it? It's the ultimate self-reflection.
Well, training should never stop. Anyone who thinks they're the master of anything, right? Be a constant student. You'll be better off, right? The student who doesn't want to be the master, that's the guy I want to learn from.
Yeah.
Right? The guy who wants the power, we see what that happens every day in the world. It's like, right? I don't even want to talk about it, by the way.
Man, that was phenomenal, and really explained what you do so well with sharing your knowledge. And yeah, definitely the form of communication. That's what's jumping out of me the most, because, you know, and I wrote to you in the email, I want to talk about, well, how do you communicate to civilians so well? Because you do, but it comes across as...
Send me your email, and I was just thinking, like, you didn't have to, you know, I don't care. I'll talk about it. Let's do it. You know what I mean?
I love it. Your charisma comes through. So that straight away is a rapport building thing. You're joyful on it. So it's the way you're doing that there. Then your words don't matter, but you're using the amazing form of communication you've invented really from 2011, 2012 with video communication, because as you said, you were talking about shooting and other things. I was thinking, imagine if someone videoed you dancing. You think you're Michael Jackson, and then you see it and you're like, okay, you've got me.
Yeah. Well, hey, you know how, I don't know if are you married, right? I'm married. And once in a while, my wife, I'm always like, hey, let's go do this. And my wife's like, we're not doing that. I'm like, how are we not? What are you talking about? We have never once done that. I'm like, what? No, let's do it. Like, oh, yeah, she's right. What? Hey, how she know that and I don't? Well, she's always on the receiving end of your little quirks, tells, whatever people does, right? So she kind of, because she watches me all the time, she kind of knows me sometimes better than I know myself, right?
Yeah.
And then anytime you've heard that, right, what that means is, you know, your fast part of your brain has more tells than the slow part of your brain, right? Because you're trying to be in the slow part of the brain. That's why you didn't pick up.
Yeah, that makes sense. John, I'd like to move on from that to something I have never really done with a guest, especially a military guest. I heard a story you told on one of the shows about a combat jump you did, I think as a ranger, and you got injured. I would like to get you to tell that story, because it's something that demonstrates the mindset of a special forces human, that identity and what sets us up. So would you be able to share that story with us, please?
Yeah. So look, I was in Ranger Battalion in 1991. I was a young Ranger, right? Desert Storm had happened and ended before I was out of training. You know what I mean?
So two-week war, was it?
Yeah. You know, by the time I joined, got through training, went through Ranger training, right? Like, is already over. So I was kind of already at my battalion. And then I guess Iraq was kicking up again, right? So we jumped into an airfield in Iraq. One of them, I think it was, I don't even remember, Ali Asalium, something like that. I don't even remember. We fly, you know, in-flight rig, and like, you know, this is real shit. Frags, you know, magazines, you name it. Like, this is real shit, right? So We load up the plane, we fly, we in-flight rig, full of, 203 grenades, man, I had mortar rounds in my backpack,
It's heavy.
the whole combat load thing, right? Like the standard, like whatever the Army says we should be carrying, we had it to the letter, because that's when you're a Ranger, you do that. When in the unit, it's a little different. You know what I mean? Like, I'll have an extra 3 of those. I end up using more. But when you're a Ranger, you get what they give you. We in-flight rig, doors open. I'm on the plane with the colonel, our commander, right? We do a race we get the winds, and the guy's like, he does the wind, right? It's like wind, right? And normally it's like 5 knots. You know what I mean? 2 knots, right? Like, this is all stuff you want to see in an airplane, right? The dude ends up like being like, and I'm like, that's like no joke shit. I don't even know what that means. You know what I mean? Like, I'm hoping it doesn't mean what I think it means, right? But like, so hey, we do a racetrack, right? The colonel walks up to the door. He's looking out with the guy, right? We get another like 28 on the next one. It was like 30 knots, 28 knots. And then the colonel like whispers in his ear, right? The next one wins 0. So like I came out, normally like you come out for a second, you're actually like lean backwards. Like you're getting lean backwards, right? Because the plane is pulling you this way a little bit, but your gravity's pulling you kind of straight down. Make sense?
Yeah.
And they call it forward throw. So you're lean back a little bit. And as soon as your parachute opens, like you're upright again.
Yep.
You know what I mean? My parachute opened and I was like that almost all the way to the ground. Like, what's going on? Like, why don't I ever feel like I'm straight up and down? So I didn't have much time. I lower my rucksack, right? My rucksack hits like this bombed out building, right? Like rubble, concrete rebar, like rubble, and it hangs up and it becomes a pendulum. And it slams me in like on the far side of the rubble. Right. So I broke my left, the front bone in my left shin, my shin bone. I don't know what that's called, right? The front one.
Yep.
Compound fracture. I hit so hard I needed a second to like, I just needed a second. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know what that's called, but you're like, like I know I didn't get up right away. I know that. So I needed a second. I breathe and I'm like, okay, I learned this little thing in Aldershot and with the 2 para, and then I mate, when you hit the ground, first off, you look at one hand and you move your fingers, mate. And you look at the other hand, mate. You make sure that works. And then you check your leg and your foot, mate. And then and I was just a young private, so it's like, okay, check hands, arms, right? Okay, yeah, I seem to be okay. Like, I could do that every time. Like, if that's what we do here in the paratroopers, like I'm in, right? Like, so I always kind of did that. Anyway, I go to check my leg and there's a ton of sand on my leg. So I take my canteen, I take a little bit of water because I didn't want to use too much. I don't know what's next. And I just pour a little over my leg. And it was just like the sand was stuck to blood. So it's all blood underneath. I couldn't even see it was blood. There was so much sand and crud stuck to it. You know what I mean? So I see that. So I kind of rinse it off as best I can. And I do
just for the listeners, John, a compound fracture is where that bone and that shin bone has snapped and come through the skin, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The skin, I was cut from like the bottom of my knee to the top of my boot. Right. And the bone was poking out. So I just kind of poked it in. But you could kind of see both. So I poked it back in. And then I did a pressure dress. That's what they called it back then. Pressure dressings, right? Because you got to stop the bleeding. You need a pressure dressing. So I did kind of 2 pressure dressings side by side to stop the pressure. And they're about I don't know, 2.5 inches wide, so I had to do two of them side by side to get most of it. It was still a little bit bigger, but that like got like most of the raw meat. So I put that on and I'm like, okay, I get up and it hurts, but I can kind of stand on it. And like, I don't got no choice. Ain't no one around me. Right. And then I look around, I didn't make the airfield. I'm on like an blown up outpost of the airfield. Right. There's mines in the dust in between me and the fence to get on the airfield. And then I got to go to the middle of the airfield. And I'm like, well, I see all the mines. I see them all. I see the pattern, right? Like little squares every so many feet. So I was like, if I got to walk in between. And I did. I just walked in between. Well, I got to the fence. I climbed the fence. Man, my leg hurt bad. I climbed the fence, made link up. I was like one of the first guys in. I had a compound fracture, right? I bet you there was like 80 or 100 guides on backboards and stretchers.
No way.
And like, the wind drug them, like, like a magazine, right? Like, a magazine, like, let's say this is a rifle magazine, the bullets go in there. Like, when a guy his rifle magazine hits like bullet side down and it drags them on the runway. And I seen magazines were like ground in half where all the bullets were still in it from the jump. Like helmets. There was a dude's helmet. It ground the front off his helmet. He was getting dragged and it was so much tension. He just couldn't get out quick enough. And it ground all the dude's gear down. Right. So they completely took all my gear, like my backpack, my straps, everything. Cause I didn't hit the concrete like everyone else.
Yeah. Right.
I think I was last and I missed it. I missed everything.
Yeah.
Anyway, there were so many guys messed up. So the medic comes in, right? And I go to the first sergeant, and I had my first sergeant was he's this older Mexican guy, the coolest guy ever, right? And he's like, "Hey, God damn it, you're one of the first ones here. Good job." I'm like, "Hey, first sergeant, I think I fucked up." He's like, "Let me see, God damn it, let me see." Right? I show him my leg. He's like, "Oh, God damn it, I think you are fucked up." He's like, "Come on, let's go see the medic," right? And I was like, "Okay." So he takes me to the medic. He's like, "Hey, doc, I think he's fucked up." Like, trying to whisper, like, that's that dude, right? And so doc's like, "Hey, sit down," right? Looks at my leg. "Wait, who did the bandages?" I was like, "I did." Huh. Okay. Handing me some scissors, cut him off. I got stuff to do. So he cuts him off. He's making the rounds, comes back to me like, "Ooh, compound fracture. How's your bone?" I was like, "Well, I stuffed it back in and I walked. So I don't think it's too bad." Right. And he's like, "Hey," he grabbed bandages, chucked them at me. Hey, you did them bandages the first time? Do it again. You need to be medevac. And like walked off. I was thinking like, this is what medics do. I got to do all my own bandages. Like, I'm glad I knew how to do that. You know what I mean? I didn't know I was going to have to do all my own shit. I'd have took it more serious. So yeah, and then I was medevac. I had a broken bone, right? Cause, of course it didn't heal right. And every time as a young private, I complained it hurt. I got the shut up, right? Because, you can't do that. And then eventually it should have been casted. It never was. And then I just kind of fought through it. And
man,
I don't know, maybe it'll bother me later, but it doesn't bother me now.
That's a wild story. Man, I interviewed a guy, Eric Miyares, and it hasn't aired yet, but basically kind of like you, he did a lot of single missions, supporting SMUs, and kind of like Jason Bourne for 20 straight years. And he was telling me this story. Yeah, we did this thing, blah, blah, blah. And then I got shot, and then I did this. And I went, no, hang on, rewind. You got shot. We need to explore that. The reason I wanted you to recount that story, John, was because SF guys have got this mindset, and you're like, "Oh, I should have been cast." Of course, it's the bone sticking out of your leg. It's kind of obvious you should have been in a cast to repair that fracture. But I really wanted to get that mindset there for people of maybe not resilience, but just always pushing forward. You walked on that limb. And that's, I love the way you recounted the story the first time, even better the second time. But you walked on that limb to achieve the mission, was to link up with your team. But Jesus, man, that's a crazy story.
Yeah. Look, I mean, here's the deal. I don't think this is unique to Special Forces guys. I don't think PTSD is unique to Special Forces guys.
No.
I don't think there's anything. I think it's humanity, right? And if I didn't ever join the Army, I would have been a cross section of humanity, just like I am, right? So I think there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that, and there's a lot to be said for that, right? But I'd also say this is like, all people in history forced into extraordinary situations, right? They always persevere. And I'm going to tell you why. Is I don't think it has to do with bravery. I don't think it has to do with, chivalry or thinking it through properly before you do some crazy shit. Or I don't think it has to do with any of that. I think it comes to a point where going back is a longer distance from here. You can't turn around.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And maybe that's one of the reasons why I made it where I made it, right? Because I always knew I'm not going back to South Chicago. I didn't like it as a kid. It was a horrible place to grow up. Why would I want to be there as an adult? You know what I mean?
You've made that decision. I think that's what it comes down to. You're the type of person, and we go through the filter. You've made the decision to step up to the mark, to push forward, to, our motto, well, always a little further. And I think that's a certain type of person. As you say, it doesn't have to be SF. And definitely when you're talking about post-traumatic stress, an SF guy seeing his buddies blown up, or a woman has had a massive argument, if it's the same result as the same result, human nature, as you said.
Yeah, you can't, where else you going to go? What else you going to do?
Yeah.
Who else you going to ask? Who else you going to count on? Who else you going to look? And I think this is what a lot of people these days are starting to, again, self-realize, right?
Oh, man.
Is no one's coming for you, man. You're on your own. No one's coming for you. No one's going to save you or your family like you would, right? So yeah, hey, that's a picture.
I love that photo. And I'll come back to what you're saying, but man, that's a huge drop. Wow. It's so true. I say to people, you've got to be able to rely on yourself. And Pat McHill actually says it really well. You've got to train so that you can save your life and the life of others. I think he's nailed it there.
Yeah. And look, man, every selection I ever did, I knew I can't back up. There's no backing up for me. There's none of it. Right. So where else am I going to go? Why wouldn't I take the next step forward? Because I know the steps behind me suck. Right. And then look, if you think you're stuck in a chapter, right? Hey, think it sucks and start putting it behind you. Start moving forward. Right. And it's not that some people aren't moving forward. It's not that you even have to move forward. It's not that you even have to know what you want to do when you grow up, because I still don't. You know what I mean? I'm hoping one day. You know what I mean? Like, I think Batman's out for me by now. I think I'm just too old, right? I think there's age, even though there's a mask, right? But look, everyone moves forward. The world moves forward. Tell me something that stops. It's time. It doesn't stop. It's not stopping for you. You have to move forward. It's not a choice. This isn't a game. You know what I mean? You have to, whether you like it or not. And the more you're able to deal with that, and the more you're able to kind of think about that, and then look, you want to move forward? Guess what? You can't move with all the baggage, right? You can't bring it with you, right? So then it goes to, well, how do you move forward? First, you got to say, let it go. Say, let it go.
Let it go.
A little pause in there. You're getting there.
I'm getting there.
But it worked. Hey, have you tried that on people? Have you tried it?
Who can do it is women.
That's because women, look, men care about things, women care about people. But women don't always go either. You know what I'm saying? But hey, I'm telling you, try it on people. Anyone listening, tell a friend if they're going through a hard time, hey, just say, let it go. Say, let it go out loud, and watch them choke on those words. That means they can't let it go.
I'll finish up because you're nailing it. What a amazing journey we've been through on this chat. Time always moves forward. Nothing stands still. But what we do have is a choice, and it may be the tiniest things. You have a choice to eat that food or not eat that food. You don't have a choice to get out of the job you're in, but you do have choice. I specifically made a choice. I couldn't choose happiness, but I chose to be kind. I know you made a choice in that office. Do I want to be this angry sergeant major, or do I want to choose something else? We do have choice. And I think you nailed it with which chapter you're in. What are you going to choose to be as well, which is how we've talked in both interviews.
Yeah. Look, it's all about choice. Choose to see it positively. Choose to think positive thoughts. Force yourself to do it. And what you're going to see is a couple years down the road, I mean, by nature, you're going to want to put in negative thoughts. It's nature. You can't help it. Everyone, look, and then, people ask me all the time, well, what about the negative thoughts? What about them? You know what I mean? Like, how many meetings I sat in as a sergeant major, like, shoot that guy in the face. Shoot that guy in the foot because he's going to say something funny. This guy gut shot. Let him die slowly. I just want to hear him in pain, right? And then but you're going to have negative thoughts. Yeah, you're a human being. We all do that. You're not going to get rid of them. You can't. You're going to have those, but you also have to have positive thoughts, right?
Natural.
Like it's balance.
Yeah.
And the truth is if it's a balance, you probably need a ton of positive thoughts because the world runs off fear.
Yeah.
Right. And then look, I told myself I'm going to think positive, right? People, like, it's been years now, man. And probably about at least a solid 3-4 years, maybe more than I know of. Right. And I'm not looking back. And then I think it works like this. Look, I would say this. And I think the world works like this. Call it religion, call it anything you want. I don't care. Call it the universe, call it whatever. I would say it works like this. There's 2 ways to live your life, positively or negatively. That is all. Negative, right? Generally, negativity has a lot of short-term gains, long-term death, right? Positivity, you're going to die with a smile and you're going to live a long time. You know what I mean? So, hey, I want to be positive. I want to live a long time and enjoy every day. Right. And then once I realized everyone has negative thoughts, it's not unique to me, right? Depression isn't unique to anyone. You don't have more of it than I do. You just dwell on it more than I do. Why? Because you're going to have 1,000 emotions today. Don't dwell on the shitty ones. And then go find something you like. I barbecue, right? I cut my grass. Like, I find a bunch of stuff that I really like. I should have been the sergeant. I missed this opportunity. I should have been the sergeant major that you step on my grass. I'm the bug. You don't touch the sergeant major's grass. I should have had like that diamond pattern. You know what I mean? I really didn't have a pet peeve back then because, like, are you doing your job? Yes, good. Get away from me. You shouldn't be here anyway, right? So, so I should have been the grass guy, but I try to grow my grass now, right? Like, I do a lot of things. I put them on Instagram. I mean, who knew me screwing around? Today I did Eye of the Tiger with my feet because that's what I was listening to in my AirPods. Do something you enjoy. Do some stupid shit. Do something stupid. Remember when you were kids, right? You'd hang out with a friend and you would do stupid shit. I'm not saying do anything dangerous, but be silly, say something silly, try something silly. I mean, see where it gets you, right? I mean, goddamn, you've been down the negative path a million miles. Like,
might as well try the other one.
Yeah, why not? Like, what do you got to lose by that point, right? So I'm just be positive, try to have positive thoughts. It's always half empty, right? And as soon as I stopped worrying about stuff, I no longer had to think about it anymore. I used to worry about how I was going to make a house payment. I don't worry about that shit anymore. I don't even give a shit. Right? As soon as I didn't give a shit no more, I don't got to worry about it no more. How's that work? Is worry self-licking ice cream? Because worry is a negative emotion. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I just think, look, live positively, right? Hey, you want to live negatively? Now, I would also say this is like, look, are people going to make mistakes, call it sin, call whatever you want? Sure. But if generally you lived a good life and you made a few mistakes, right? At the end of the day, you're probably going to a better place. You know what I mean?
Well, at least you're going there happy.
Yeah. And I would say it's about your mindset. And I would say it's not about religion. I'd say it's about your mindset. And I would say this is, if you kind of look up the most common experience, near-death experience, you know what you'd think you'd find on Google?
I think it is, I wish I'd done more. Or
no, the black comes for you. Google it. The black comes for you. This happened to my mom. She couldn't sleep after. The black came for her. Why? Well, I don't know, but she was pretty bitter and she held on to a lot of stuff most of her life. So you think the negative energy, that negative wave, whatever you're putting out, you think that's what decides for you? I don't know. But if you Google blackness coming for you, you're going to find just as many of those as any other near-death experience. So there's the light comes, right? And everything's great. And you feel like you don't want to leave. And then there's the black comes for you and it closes in quick.
Yeah, wow.
So, but think about this. I mean, you know, be a good person, man. It's not that hard, right? Try to help someone once in a while. How about be patient? Talk to a stranger. How about help someone once in a while? I'm always trying to help people around my community. You know what I mean?
See, there it is, man, right there. And, you know, Sergeant Major's wisdom. I was trying to figure out how to wrap this up, but you nailed it there. I listened to an audiobook of a guy who was in Auschwitz. He was a proud German. He was a boy. He had to go to boarding school under an assumed name because you know, not to be German for years, assumed identity. Long story short, had a terrible life. If anybody wants to be angry at the world and post-traumatic stress, whatever you want to call it, he's got the right to, right? But he decided after a couple of years, his wife, his new wife, his love, these people don't deserve that. So he made a decision to be kind, because why not? And then that went on. But, you know, you talked about doing things for your community. Again, I just, Pat Mack stands out as some things he's doing there. Nobody knows he's not doing it to get kudos. He's just doing it to make the place around him a bit better, paying it forward. Any of these words you want to use, I know you've studied it, so you actually know the science behind it. But those things, they imprint a different story in our head, and that's essentially what you're saying is positive, happy, doing things you enjoy, and yeah, welcome to the light, I think.
Yeah, I mean, look, if let's say there's a gauge or meter, positive, negative, right? Like, don't you think you'd always want to be in the positive? And how does that feel? How does helping someone feel? What if you could have more of that in your life versus, you know, more of the news?
Yeah. 100%.
Right. I was trying to think of something negative, but like that's all you see on TV. The social media is not social; it's antisocial. Right. So, yeah. I mean, like, look, and then find something you love and stay with it for so long you forgot about it. Right. And I'd also say this is a lot of people have like, I don't know, a lot of people are traumatized at a young age, right? And then later you're going to have to sort this out, right? And sometimes it's what defines you in a good way. Sometimes it could lead you astray, right? You end up how you end up, whatever, right? Good or bad people. But you know, as maybe you're led astray or something, what really happens is when you get older, right? When you're a kid, the smart brain, the subconscious takes over, and it's like it starts blocking all that shit. No, you don't need to see that again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't need to remember that, right? And that's part of the subconscious's job, right? But think about this: is like, as an adult, you don't have that, so you self-medicate. You drink, you take pills, you do. People do whatever, right? I drank, right? And you self-medicate, right? But really, all that is it's all just a hall pass. Right, because you're going to have to deal with it. But think about it: if something happened today, and me and you sat down, we talked about it and solved it today. How bad could it be? Because it's only today. It's only one day. How bad could this be? Right? Like when it festers, it's going to be worse. People start to get mad. Now there's emotion, right? But if everything was solved in a day, right, there'd be less shit to be mad about. Why spend more time on it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and the more time that goes by from the time of trauma, whatever that is, right? Good, bad, whatever. You know what you got. You know what I mean? I'm talking to you. You know what you got, right? From that point, alcohol is a hall pass. Pills are a hall pass. Right. But the problem is like, if we just solve the problem today, no matter how bad it was, right, we wouldn't have any of that. But the longer the whole pass goes on, the more we got to figure out what the fuck is wrong, what is wrong with us to begin with, because we put so much time and distance between what got me here, you wouldn't know where to even start.
Yeah.
And you need your start point. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, because you've been holding on to that. You've been holding on to that, and that's why you need the whole pass.
All that drinking was a hall pass.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What was I hall passing? The worst of humanity. Who wouldn't? Right? Like, who wouldn't? Who wants to remember that? I don't want to remember all those nights. They were horrible. Right? I made bad decisions. I made good decisions. I seen people at their best when shit was at its worst. Right? But I don't really want to remember that. I don't think anyone should have to experience that. Right? So, what you do is you end up having to go back to what's the start point, and then you're going to have to backtrack a little bit, right? And then you're going to have to figure this stuff out, and then you have triggers, right? Like in your relationship, your wife talks about things. You're like, what did you just say? Right? Right? You have triggers. Okay, try to figure out what your triggers are. Write them down, map them out. Maybe your triggers will point to what probably happened to you. I don't know, but it points to something. It's more than you know now doing nothing, always being mad, right? It's more than you do now. So know what your triggers are. Look at it holistically. What's wrong with me? Try to take that step back, right? Look, I always tell guys when we shoot on the range in a class, it's like Netflix. Shooting is not like Netflix. Here's the deal. You come out to the range. I shoot 5 rounds on a target right now. I shoot my 5 rounds. I see my pattern, right? I go up there. We tape up our holes and we do it again. Well, the front of the target is just one episode. The back of the target's the whole season. And that tells a big.
Yeah.
Most of the time, most people aren't looking at this going, let me look at the whole picture. What's the whole picture? What are my triggers? What am I doing wrong? What's my diet like? Am I consuming too much alcohol? Be honest with yourself, right? Like, and when I say too much, it's a relative scale, because if you're drinking 2 bottles tonight, I wouldn't tell you to stop. I would tell you, could you cut that down to 1.5 over the next week? And then we'll cut it back to 1.25. Right. And then 1, you know what I mean? And then maybe half, and then it works. And I'm telling you that works, because I did it with a guy, and me and my wife were out. My wife doesn't even know we've ever talked about this between me and this guy at the time. Right. But we were out, and then he gets a bottle and he marks it. And she's like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I only drink to there. And she's like, oh, okay, cool. Right? Like, right? She had no idea why he was doing it. And he did it because, well, he started out in the 1 or 2 bottle category, and he got to the point where he marked it and said, I'm drinking this much tonight, no matter what. And that's how he cut himself down.
See, a choice, a start point and a choice.
Yeah. Start point, man. Yeah. has to start somewhere, and you got to know you got to start somewhere. Even if you just chose one night now and it was wrong, and then you just started heading in what you think is the right direction, you know what it is. Be positive. You know what I mean? Try to help people. Right? I'm telling you, be a good person. It'll come back at you.
I'm with you 100%, John. I really am. And there's so much gold that you've talked through for people. I'll split it up. I'll do a bunch of trailers from this show, because that wisdom, those little nuggets, if we can help one person, man, you know, that's paying it forward.
I've always been a good intent guy. And I've always tried to help everybody that I've run across. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I have, so, and that's why, you don't have to, send me the list of questions. Ask me, I'll tell you what I think or feel about it. Right. And why is my experience, what I think or feel as being a sergeant major, being an Army guy, being a Ranger, a Special Forces guy, a unit guy, I can tell you what I think and feel, you know what I mean? I can't share things, you know what I mean? But we can talk about a lot. And I'll tell you, a lot of guys got a lot of experience, especially guys that have figured out what burned them out, like I did, figured out they were burned out, the start point, and then figuring out how to unburn out yourself, and then realize, man, one day I realized I used to be funny. I used to have jokes. I used to have your mom jokes. You know what I mean? When we were kids, it was always your mom jokes, right? I used to be funny. What happened to that? How do I get back there? And then, it goes back to what we talked about last time. I made a choice today. When I wake up, I can smile and have a good day, or I can be an asshole and have a bad day every day. What do I want to do? I want to have a good day. And I try to be funny, and I tell jokes, and they were horrible. And people be like, I liked you better when you were mad all the time. And you know what I mean? I went for it. Right. And then I had fun, you know what I mean? But I had to make myself have fun, and it started at my expense, most of it. Now both guys say I should be a comedian.
That's doing the work, man. You've done the work. It's leading by example is what I can say there. And it's a pleasure to talk to you each time. Yeah. Watching your success, I've got to congratulate you on your success in this chapter of your life. Thank you for explaining how you do the video work, how you put your product out there. Brilliant, but it's obviously got so many offshoots, as you said, to all facets of life. And then again, thank you for being so open with things, as you always are, for those people to be able to listen and take something away. It's brilliant. Again, as always, if someone's listened to the end of this show here, SOBtactical.com.
Yeah, man, SOB Tactical. You could go to any of I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, I don't know, Twitter, I don't know. We do them all. SOB Tactical on almost all of them. Come check me out, right? If you go to any of the bios, you click on it. I'll put a link to this podcast for sure, so people be able to see it right off my kind of workflow page. So
beautiful.
I can't wait to watch this, man. And I know, if we could just help one person, right? And if I wrote a book, you know what I mean? If I could help one person, now it's probably not the right answer when you're talking to book people about sales. How many you want to sell? If I could just sell one, I'd be happy, right? And the guy's like, yeah, probably not a good book guy, are you? Hey, look, if one person could walk away from this, and I'm telling you, when other guys have called me with problems, I tell them this: for the next 24 hours, be as positive as possible and watch what happens. You'll have a great day. Amazing shit will happen. And you're like seriously, it'll happen to you tomorrow. Just be positive. Watch. Try to be positive all day tomorrow, right? Try it. And I would tell anybody out here, look, if you're listening, try it. Be positive all day. Look, you're going to have 1,000 emotions, right? Just choose the positive ones. Happy, love, funny, I don't know, whatever, right? I'm not an emotional expert, right? I'm a dude. But you're going to have 1,000 emotions. Choose the good ones. be positive for the next 24 hours and report back to me. And I bet you amazing shit happens to you. And then you can message me, tell me. I bet it does. And everyone this works. I'm telling you, it works. I'm telling you, it works. And the guy who did it with me, it worked with me. It was amazing.
Yep. Man, you got some phenomenal wisdom. I literally, normally I try and run these things, but I'm blown away. I've got 2 pages of notes here, and I'll go back and re-listen to the show. It's been brilliant talking to you again, John. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Looking forward to watching your journey even more.
Yeah, thanks, man. You too. Like, I've been seeing your guests, like, oh, I want to hear that guy. Hey, one of the other guys, did you see I was on the DTD podcast. The guy's got the beard, looks like the Wolf Man. He's a cop out of Dallas. I was on his show. He does a really good podcast. Like, he's not very big, but like he's got it dialed in. Like, he's pretty cool, right? I was talking to him last night about podcasting, and he talked to that Donnie Brasco dude.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, I just talked to him. He's like, yeah, I'll give you his contact info. He's super nice. I'm like, I was like, how did it go? And he was like, some of this shit he was saying was amazing, because he's like a detective, he's a detective interrogator. He just does questioning people. That's all he does. And he does his podcast, right? Super cool dude, right? A super cool looking podcast. He's got this like studio microphone. He's got like a Wolfman picture behind it. It's pretty cool. If you check him out, right, you'll know what I'm talking about.
I will. Yeah, that sounds great. Look, the ability to connect with people is phenomenal, and people of different chapters, it just blows me away. I'm honored to be able to connect with people like yourself, people like we've had on.
Broke his shin. Look how skinny I was. Look how big the hat was on my head. Like, the hats are like this on me now. My head.
Oh, man, that's awesome. Look, John, I'll wrap it up for the recording. We'll have a quick chat after. Thank you so much, man. It's an absolute pleasure.